So I finished my first pro year ranked 180th in the world. Last year I got 2 podiums. So I got second at Challenge Wales, second at 70.3 Belgium, like 9 seconds behind the win.
Lizzie is a triathlete who I've worked with over the last couple of years. She's humble, down to earth, but also an incredible athlete. So good, in fact, I had to re-record this intro because Lizzie raced last week and won Ironman Portugal 70.3, which was her first win as a pro triathlete. Geez, Lizzie, why'd you have to go and be so speedy? In this video, we talk about some of the challenges that she faces while following a vegan diet, how she manages her daily nutrition, and, of course, the ever-present protein issue.
I just make sure that every single meal has a really decent protein source. By now I know what that looks like. It's, your tofus, your yogurts, all your soya products, your beans, like pasta has quite a lot of protein in it, even rice. I think people are often surprised at what, your brown breads have like 10 grams of protein in it. So it's quite surprising how much you can actually get from things that you don't really have to supplement.
There's lots of brilliant insight in this from Lizzie, so enjoy it. And if you have any questions for me or Lizzie, then let us know in the comments and we'll get back to you. So let's get into it. Lizzie, thanks for coming on and chatting with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we already know each other, but for those of you who are listening who have no idea who you are, just tell us a little bit about you and where you are in the world.
So I'm Lizzie, I'm 26, almost 27, and I'm a pro long course triathlete based in Malmesbury in North Wiltshire.
Ace, and that is in the UK.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
There's probably some people like, where is North Wiltshire?
Okay, for everyone abroad, it's like I'm about half an hour north of Bath.
That's probably a good one. Yeah, most people will know Bath or Bristol.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's a lovely place in the world to be a triathlete and some good cycling around there.
I absolutely love it. Like, I still live at home, which I'm really grateful for, because it'd be quite hard to do what I do if I had to pay rent or pay a mortgage, but I actually don't think I want to live anywhere else. I have the pool 5-minute walk from my front door, which the benefit of that means I'm home having breakfast within like 15 minutes of getting out of the pool. And then we've got such good variety of riding. I can come out your way and do loads of hills, and then I can head towards like the lakes and it's just completely flat. So yeah, I feel quite spoiled.
It's good. I guess the only downside is the British weather.
Yes, it's been a bit testing lately, but hopefully, it's a beautiful day today, so hopefully we get a bit of summer.
It's good prep anyway. If you can ride or train in British conditions, then you're generally pretty good in others as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So how long have you been doing triathlon for, Lizzie? And in terms of pro racing, when did you turn pro?
Yeah, so I did my first triathlon when I was 12. I remember it quite well. It was a very classically British day in terms of weather. It was very wet, very windy, and it was at a little RAF base near Bath called Cullen. The swimming pool was in a hangar. It just wasn't a very glamorous occasion, but I didn't enjoy it. I had a horrendous stitch on the run. You're 12 years old, you just sort of, you just turn up and do what you can do.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the bug. I think both my parents have grown up very sporty. My dad did modern pentathlon in the RAF. I've grown up then watching them do the local sprint triathlons here. So, and mum still runs, which is really nice. So I think I just did it because of that. And I've always been really sporty. But then obviously you're in that difficult age between like 12 and 16, I guess, where unless you're part of a club, which, because I live in the country, there's not anything really near me. You don't really have the provision to go out cycling, or, I was part of a swimming club, but there wasn't really anything in terms of like running or cycling. I know running you can just go and do by yourself, but not really at that age. And I wasn't that into running. I was one of these things you're sort of forced to do at school, but I was super keen. And then I think it was London 2012, to be honest, that really got me back into it. Proper cliche, nice. I know.
Inspiring for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel really fondly about that games and the Brownlees and all of that. So I think I was about 16, so then got back into it. We're really lucky around where we live. I know you've done a lot of events over here as well. We've got loads of sprint triathlons, and 20 minutes from my house. So did a few more of those when I was sort of 16. And then actually that same year, so I think I was in year 11 at school, my school started a triathlon club. My head of PE at the time, she was super keen. We've got the leisure centre basically backs onto the school. So we don't have a school pool. We weren't that posh. But that was really cool. We're just cycling on the gym bike, like the static bikes you use for spinning classes. That was super fun. And then we'd do like a 6-week block and then have a mini triathlon at the end of it. So that was really cool. And then in terms of going pro, so I went to uni in 2016, which is crazy.
One of those ones, it feels like years and years and years ago.
It does. And then I went to St Mary's University in London, which is a really big running uni, is where like Mo Farah went, and we've got a couple of alumni going to the Olympics. So I sort of caught that bug, really. Wasn't ever a brilliant runner. Like I grew up playing hockey, cricket, swimming, cross country, bit of track and field at school, but nothing really outside of that. But I decided I wanted to go all in on running. I think you turn up to uni and you see this fancy track. It's been renamed the Sir Mo Farah track, so you feel that's pretty cool. And it's just like running mecca down in southwest London. You've got like Charlotte Purdue, and the Australians train over here in the summer, over there. And so I did that, and I went in as literally, as the coach said, like bottom of the pile, like I came 400th at English schools the year before or something like that. And I think consequently spent a lot of time injured. I went all in, and the coach there was pretty old school coach, all about volume and intensity. So we were running a lot and we were running hard. So I'd train well for like a month and then I'd just be injured.
Burn out and...
Yeah. It wasn't very healthy, and it wasn't a very healthy environment. I was still swimming. I was swimming with the local masters club at Teddington Swimming Club, which was brilliant. And I was really keen to keep up my swimming. So that was really fun. And then consequently, due to being injured all the time, I was doing a load of watt bike sessions. Wasn't riding outside of that, just doing my running on the watt bike, basically. So then I thought, I'll maybe get back into triathlon. I'd always had this dream of being a professional athlete in some way or another. I think when you grow up sporty, I think it's just sort of the rite of passage that's what you want to do. So, and then I thought, maybe I can get into long course triathlon and do it that way, because you can't really become a professional at the Olympic distance unless you've been on like a performance pathway with British Triathlon since you were like 12 or 13. It's not something you can like choose to jump into. So I knew the only way with being professional was going long course. So started being coached while I was at uni, just casually by a friend. And then when I graduated in 2019, I started paying for my first proper coach, Harry, who I was with for 3 or 4 years, through the pandemic and all of that. And then did my first middle distance race in 2022 at Outlaw Half Nottingham. And people always laugh when I say that I accidentally won, but I did.
Just casually won, trotted over the line.
Yeah. I had it's my first middle distance race. I'd been working abroad in Spain for the last 6 months. I'd been riding a road bike. I rode my TT bike that I got during lockdown. I rode my TT bike for like a week, because I came home for 2 weeks for that race. So I only rode it for a week before the race. Didn't really know what I was doing, and thought maybe a top 5 would be a really good result. It's a very competitive race in the UK because it's how you get your pro license. It's called one of these gateway events. So if you win, you become a pro. You don't have to, but it's the options there. So I thought top 5 would be really good. I had a really good day, won. And then when I crossed the line, I hadn't really thought about the pro thing. The organiser, Helen, I believe, she said, you can apply for your pro licence now. And I was like, maybe I'll do that. Because I was in a job, I was really struggling. It wasn't a very good environment. I just wasn't very happy. And I thought, this is my ticket to leave. So I flew back to Spain, did like 2 more weeks of this job. And then I thought, I can't do this anymore. So I quit that, moved back home, and basically have been all in ever since, which is quite cool. So my second ever middle distance race was my first pro race at 70.3 Swansea in 2022.
Blimey, that's quite the claim to go for your second middle distance race to be a pro.
Yeah, I was like, do I take it next year? And I thought, I'm going to take it at some point. Like, why not have a super steep learning curve and throw yourself in at the deep end? And I remember lining up on the start line of my first pro race with Alistair Brownlee. And you think, this is crazy. Like, this guy who I've watched I've grown up with him, like watching him race, like him and Gomez, and I'm doing my first pro race with Alistair Brownlee. And it was sort of a real pinch me moment. So that was really cool. That was sort of quite a nice like full circle moment. And do you know what? Lining up on that start line it was quite a stacked field that year. It was like Kat Matthews, Ruth Assel. I didn't actually have any imposter syndrome. Like I was really expecting to feel like that, but I just really felt like I belonged there. And that was a really nice moment. I thought, yeah, I'm meant to do this. So yeah.
Nice. That's such
nice.
a cool experience as well.
Yeah.
And I guess
really
it just
cool.
gives good vibes for the future.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then, so how have things been going since you've turned pro?
Yeah, really good. I finished my first pro year ranked 180th in the world. Last year, I got 2 podiums. So I got second at Challenge Wales and second at 70.3 Belgium, like 9 seconds behind the win.
I remember watching, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was quite soon after we started working together, actually. So
Yeah.
probably got you to thank for that.
I mean, you do all the hard work.
I think the rest of 90% of my results that year were in the top 5. So that moved me up to 80th in the world. And then this year I've currently had a 6th, 70.3 Valencia, 5th at Mallorca 70.3, which is a pro series race. Had my first ever pro DNF, which was quite a learning experience. And then I got 3rd at 70.3 Swansea a couple of weeks ago. And I'm currently, I think, around 59th in the world. So that's pretty cool. The goal for this year was top 50. I've got 3 races left, including European champs and world champs. So I'm hoping those will sort of catapult me up there. That'd be quite cool. So it's gone well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have no doubt you will just keep getting faster and doing better. So I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, one of the things I wanted to chat to you about, obviously from us working together, I have some insight into your diet. But I think what's really interesting, and probably you're in the minority of pro triathletes with this, is that you're a vegan and you follow a vegan diet, aren't you? Or
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
So how long have you been vegan for, and what made you choose a vegan diet, vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, so I've been vegan for 6.5 years, so a fair while now. I was vegetarian for a little bit before that, not a huge amount of time, but I was thinking about this the other day, and I was listening to a podcast with a couple of the producers and directors of David Attenborough's new show, and I remember thinking like what a profound impact like his programs have had on me over the years. And growing up, like I've always been an animal lover, always wanted to be a vet. Sadly, I didn't get the grades in school. I grew up obsessed with animals. We'd go down to Cornwall every year on a holiday, and I'd take my like insect book, my bird book. Always had a book of different types of dogs, and I've always had pets growing up. And I really think that's my main reason. I've just got such empathy for animals, and I just care so much. I feel a lot more deeply about animals than I do about humans. It's
I don't think you're alone actually in that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people I've spoken to feel the same. So yeah, that, and when I was in Spain for this job, I remember it's like really cementing my feelings, because I'd be like driving down the motorway and there'd be huge like cattle trucks, and I'd get quite emotional because I'm like, I know where they're going, and I know, and the culture of, obviously everyone, fine, you can not eat meat, that's understandable, but it's why dairy and all that, but it's, there's this, they're being produced, and they're not meant to produce milk when they don't have calves, and they don't have, it's just it's very, very artificial. It's it's the way they're treated. I really struggle with that. And also the environment, right? Remember David Attenborough did do a program maybe last year, and it was a really profound program about the impact of what we're doing to the planet. And it really affected me. And I've been vegan for a while before that, but if I can just do my bit to help the environment, then I will, because it's quite sad that it's going the way it's going. But obviously, it's being vegan isn't appropriate for everyone. And if there was a health reason why I wasn't able to continue being vegan, like I was struggling with, I don't know, like bone health, or I had blood tests that weren't great, then if it was for my health, then I'd obviously probably eat like yogurt or something like that. Just be quite mindful of it. I'm not sacrificing my health or my career, but it is, so far so good. I have blood tests every year, and I've not encountered any problems whatsoever. So yeah.
And was there like a particular defining moment for you that made you go vegan, or was it just a gradual shift over time?
Yeah, I was trying to think about this. I don't think so. I was at uni at the time, and we were catered for 3 years. And I always remember the vegetarian food being so much better than the meat. And so I just sort of, and they also think that was my first experience actually of dairy alternatives. It's not something we'd buy at home, but they supplied like Alpro yogurt and things like that, and I just really liked them. And I thought, oh, actually, if there's a way that I can enjoy food and actually do my bit for the animals and the planet, then I'll do that. I don't really. I think it's just sort of a gradual phasing out of things that I could.
It's so funny, isn't it? The whole eating outside of things and restaurants. How I used to find that when I ate meat was that I still wanted vegetables when I would go out, and I'd be like, well, I don't want just meat with a tiny bit of veg or something like that. And it was often like the vegetarian options were so much better. You think it's kind of bizarre, but I mean, I guess it's a lot easier nowadays as well. And maybe we'll get onto this, but to eat vegan and follow a vegan diet because of the alternatives and the different foods we've got available.
Yeah, I also that sort of just made me think that I had really horrific food poisoning from some turkey I had at Christmas school dinners one year, and I don't know if maybe like subconsciously that's really like, because I wasn't vegetarian at that point, that's just really affected me because I was so unwell.
So yeah, I think you can. I remember I had a friend who got food poisoning, and it wasn't related to food at all, but the last meal he ate before he had food poisoning, it just stuck in his brain. He was like, it took him years to eat it. It was hummus, and he couldn't go back to it just because it was like burned into his brain.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you obviously train a lot. What does a typical day of eating look like for you?
Typically, I will have a banana before I go swimming. That's something you told me to do, which I just didn't really do before. So I swim 5 days a week in the morning, just because the pool timetable allows it. I think if I could swim at any point, I wouldn't be swimming first thing. But it's quite nice to get it out of the way, isn't it, and get it done. So I have a banana before I go. I have most of my swims are about an hour and a half, so I have a carb drink during swimming. Get home, and most of the time I'll have peanut butter and jam, bagel or toast with a banana. If I'm training within about 2 hours later, because it just goes down quite quickly and it's quite a readily available fuel source. If I'm training a bit later, I'll have something a bit more like Weetabix and frozen fruit and things like that, just because that keeps me a bit fuller for longer. And then I'll do my second session. I'll come home. So that session is normally my hardest of the day. So I'll come home and I'll pretty much have a protein shake straight away, because even if I'm cooking dinner, cooking lunch, it could be half an hour to an hour after I've got home. I'll obviously most of the time fuel during sessions as well. I know that doesn't count as my snack, but I have the protein shake, and then I quite like, let's say on a Monday, have tofu scramble, some nice wholemeal bread. So it's basically scrambled eggs, but with tofu, nutritional yeast, red onion, salt, pepper, turmeric, smoked paprika, tender stem broccoli. So that's quite nice. I have that, pretty much like clockwork every Monday. And then I'll leave it probably 2 hours and then train again. And then after that because that'll be probably maybe 5 o'clock-ish, have a snack of normally yogurt and granola. I make homemade granola, which is, well, me and mum make it. She'll be cross if I take all the...
She doesn't get a mention.
Yeah. We're meant to take it in turns, but often she ends up doing it. Have that with yogurt, granola, frozen fruit, and that's quite a nice hearty snack. And then dinner, what do we do for dinner? Quite into at the moment, we've had quite a lot of tofu fried rice, which is quite nice in the summer because it's cold. Well, it can be cold. Or we're doing pasta salads, or a really quick, easy dinner would be like black bean stew with rice. And then probably something sweet before dinner, because I can't help myself.
Before dinner or after dinner?
Sorry, after dinner. Before bed, I meant.
The before dinner treat.
Yeah.
And do you set up your meals so that you eat pretty much like the same pattern routine a day? Does it change dramatically over the week?
It's pretty similar. 2 days a week, I work 2 till 8. So those are the only days it sort of really changes, but also it depends on training. But I try and keep it relatively, like timings and everything relatively similar. Just, I feel like if my body's in a routine, then yeah, everything else is a bit easier basically.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's such a good way to manage your food, and because it just takes the kind of guesswork out, takes the using up your brain power, which you're trying to actually use for your training and managing that load side of things.
Yeah, I love being on autopilot. I love just, yeah, having that structure and routine. It's really helpful for me.
And what are some of your common snacks which you go to?
I jumped on the lockdown banana bread train. Found a recipe from Deliciously Ella that's actually coffee banana bread. So I think I probably make a loaf of that every other week. And I've done that since lockdown. And I'm not bored of it, miraculously. So normally that with a piece of banana bread and an apple, or if I'm feeling extra, if I need the extra energy, I'll like put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, then put peanut butter on top, which is super good. Otherwise, yeah, we make granola, so that's really handy. Toast. Yeah, and then a lot of it, I'm not afraid to also have like sweets and stuff before training or during training, just because it's good carbs, it's extra energy, it's just stuff your body needs.
Well, that's it. I mean, with your training volume and how much you're doing, you need to be able to get the energy in, right? However it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And one of the things I'm sure people are curious about, and maybe you've had questions about it before, but how do you manage protein as a vegan?
Yeah, so this is quite a common, everyone's like, oh, how do you get your protein in? It took me quite a while to educate myself and understand fully what I needed as an athlete. And I actually think it was thanks to lockdown, because we had so much more time at home to cook and everything, that I properly invested in figuring it all out basically. So I just make sure that every single meal has a really decent protein source. By now I know what that looks like. It's, your tofus, your yogurts, all your soya products, your beans, like pasta has quite a lot of protein in it, even rice. I think people are often surprised at what, your brown breads have like 10 grams of protein in it. So it's quite surprising how much you can actually get from things that you don't really have to supplement. And then I do probably have a protein shake every day. It's probably not the healthiest version of protein, but it's better than being protein deficient. And it's just a really quick energy source. I use actually, I don't know if I can mention the brand. Anyway.
We'll skip that one for now.
So I have that after every hard or long session. So like I'll go for a 3-hour ride today and I'll just have that before lunch, or I'll have it after the gym. Whatever's my hardest session, basically, I'll have it after that.
Nice, just to prioritize it at that point.
Yeah, and there's carbs in it as well. So it's calories, it's protein, it's carbs. So it's quite a good bang for your buck, and sometimes I'll just put it in a smoothie for extra fiber or extra nutrients. So yeah, I think that's just being mindful.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say, of kind of being mindful and actually just structuring your diet in a way that you include those different great plant-based protein sources, but making sure you actually get them, because I guess you have to put that little bit of effort in to make sure that you are hitting them over the day.
Yeah, it's a bit more of an effort, but it's also once you know what you can have and you understand, it's super easy, and it's also not expensive. I think a lot of people think that being a vegan is really expensive, but you can go to Aldi and you can get all your cans of beans and peas and whatever, and your frozen fruits, which obviously like not specifically vegan, but you don't have to buy all those processed fake meats that are around now. I think they have their place, and they're quite good for maybe people that want to cut back on their meat consumption but still kind of like that flavour. Doesn't really float my boat. I quite like a vegan sausage. Which is quite nice. Sometimes a sausage sandwich is quite nice after a hard training day. It's quite a good lunch. But I think, yeah, if you can get your real foods in first, and then whatever's left over, you can do what you want.
Nice. And how do you manage, or do you consciously manage anything like vitamins, minerals within your diet?
So the only ones I really take I take B12, because I think pretty much everyone even vegetarians, you can't get B12 in your diet. Vitamin D, because we live in the UK.
Yeah.
Mainly. And I do take vitamin C, like one of the like tablets in the water every morning. It tastes nice, and my mum's a primary school teacher, so she comes home with, which is why I'm
All the
currently a
coughs and
bit
colds.
unwell because she's got the end of term sniffles, so obviously I've got it too.
It's kind of her.
I try to stay away, but there's only so much you can do when you live together. But that's pretty much it. So that and then protein shake. I don't really think I try to get as much as possible from real food.
Nice. I like that approach. It's good. So what are some of the biggest challenges you've come up as a vegan triathlete?
A lot of it revolves around being abroad, traveling and training and racing. It is obviously quite a lot better now than what it was a few years ago. Yeah, I still struggle with eating out, trying to find somewhere, and it makes you a bit difficult. Well, that's how people see it. You're the difficult one, and I have struggled with that before. You can go to some quite rogue places that just don't have, and they don't know what a vegan is.
Yeah.
So that's quite hard. We have been to some countries, actually, even like Belgium, where they didn't even sell tofu.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, we're really lucky that race we drove to. So I had packed a cool box with like a couple of blocks of tofu, some soya milk, just stuff that like the basics to get us through like the first few days. But then obviously that had to last the whole trip, which I was really surprised about. But that's quite a rare problem. Most places we go to, we haven't really had a problem with it. Sometimes if you go out, you have to settle for like, I quite like a vegan burger. You can get those, what they call Beyond, is it Beyond Burgers?
Meat?
Yeah, Beyond Meat.
Burgers, yeah.
Or like Moving Mountains or something like that. That's quite good, and it's just quite good calories in the lead up to a race. But so I do try and avoid, most of the time out of choice, eating out when I go away to a race, just because I want to limit all possibilities of any kind of stomach upset. So I do always book a hotel or an Airbnb with a kitchen. So, I mean, you want as much as possible to be in your control before a race. So, but now obviously I've learnt from Belgium that if we can drive to a race, then I will take most of the stuff that I need.
Staples.
Yeah, because you don't want that anxiety of like, oh God, I'm not going to be able to get X, Y, Z. I mean, we're in the position at the moment where like financially we can't afford to like hang around either side of a race. So we literally fly in, fly out. So we're there for 4 nights. So there's not really not come across many problems. And then training camps is kind of the same. I mean, I went on training camp to Mallorca in April, and it was first time I'd ever been to like an all-inclusive buffet, and it was absolutely amazing. And it was so good for being vegan. It was like had your beans, your peas, your all sorts of pastas. It was obviously very meat and fish heavy, but they still did cater for us vegans. So I think, yeah, probably just being abroad is the hardest part of it. In the UK, we're quite lucky that pretty much anywhere you can go now, there is at least one option. It's still, obviously being from Wiltshire Ham, it's a very farming county. They still struggle. Like quite a lot of pubs out here, you still won't be able to get anything. But I don't eat out much. So
it sounds like most of the issue actually just comes either from if you eat out or just being abroad, and actually kind of the home training life, that's all easy because generally you've got that on autopilot. You know how that works. That's the easy part.
Yeah, and my mum and my sister are vegetarian, so my dad still eats meat, but I'll just make what I'm making and then he'll just like add a chicken on the side or something. So it's quite helpful that we'll all sort of eat the same things. I'm not just cooking for me. So
yeah.
So it's quite easy now. I think when I first did it, it was still quite a new thing. So
come a long way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. I'm really glad about it.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm curious to hear about is, have you ever had any skepticism or criticism regarding your diet, being a vegan triathlete, from other triathletes, from the community? I mean, historically, my experience is that the tri community is really accommodating. It's a really nice place. But I'm just curious, have you ever come across anything?
I do get it fairly often, mainly from guys.
Surprising.
Yeah. They just don't think it'll work. And I think I don't know if it's that like laddie thing of like, oh, protein gains, like, but yeah, I've had comments like, oh, good luck, I've tried that. And I'm like, yeah, I've done it for 6 years. It's like, I'm doing okay. I'm not like wasting away. My bones aren't fragile. I've not struggled. I've not had injury now for like 2-3 years, and previously I think people thought that that's why I was getting injured and all of that. Like, to be honest, it's not really something I shout about, just not because I'm not like proud of the fact I do it, but it's not a status thing. It's just sort of I don't want to invoke any criticism. I think that it's really silly because it's like I'm doing a good thing. But I can't be bothered with any like negativity around it. I think there's still a bit of stigma around it. So the amount of people that I've met and they have no idea, and I think it's been a bit criticised in the past for like, it's the first thing you say in a conversation, or it's like being an Ironman, isn't it? Everyone knows you're an Ironman within like 3 minutes of meeting you. I just try not to make a big deal over it, because I can't be bothered with the whole like trying to justify it, because I know they're just interested, but quite a lot of people are like, I get grilled about why I do it, and it's sort of, I don't really need to have a reason, it's...
Yeah, I always find it quite an interesting one around diet, because it's just a very personal thing, isn't it? It's a very personal choice. And I suppose if you are particularly active and and that's kind of, I guess, part of your identity, or you enjoy being like an outspoken vegan, or maybe a different diet if that's what you follow.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think people do just want to get on with things, don't they? And actually, it's kind of one of those things which I think social media isn't great for. You get a lot of unwelcome advice.
Yeah.
A variety of things that goes through triathlon as well, or running, or whatever. It's like, why is your saddle so high? Or you should do this. And it's like, well, maybe, but maybe not.
So in reference to Daniela Reef.
Yeah,
Real.
oh, that's where it was. Yeah, that obviously stuck in my head. I was like, why? That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the more that I gain that following, the more vulnerable you are to criticism and negativity. And I don't want to waste any energy on that. And I don't want to waste, like, I'm putting everything that I can into training and being in the best, like, mental and physical state possible. I can't be bothered to deal with it.
I love it. It's such a straightforward kind of pragmatic approach to it, which is I think is the way to be.
I know there's like a lot to be said for being authentic and genuine, but I think, like, I don't know, I've not received any negativity or anything like that, but I just don't know how I'd react if I don't think I'm a sensitive person, but you also just like, why take the risk if it's going to affect you or just even bother you, slightly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good. And you mentioned it, and we don't have to mention the name, but supplement wise, have you found it particularly difficult to find supplements as a vegan, whether that's like race nutrition, whether it's recovery stuff?
Race nutrition wise, no. I'm sponsored by Precision Fuel and Hydration, and all of their stuff is vegan. I don't think I've come across prior to working with them, a product that wasn't vegan, just from what I'd been using. I think maybe some flavourings of certain things I'd used in the past, but now everything I use, and I think most things now are vegan. I don't think there'd be a reason for them not to be. The thing I struggled with was vegan protein powder. Find one that actually tasted nice.
I used to have one and it tasted like swamp water.
Yeah, they're either like super grainy, or I couldn't have it unless it was in a smoothie and like super blended up. But the one I have now is amazing with water. And to find something like that is pretty incredible, because I remember even before, I didn't really have protein before because I wasn't really training and I didn't really know about this stuff. But even whey protein, I think I remember mixing it with water and it's still gross. So to find a vegan protein powder that you can mix with water, which obviously means it's cheaper, you can transport it. So like during race day, like I'll have the shaker full of water, and then when I get towards the end, like he'll just pour the sachet of protein in, and it's there. It's not worrying about carrying around milk or anything that can go off. So it's really convenient. But yeah, otherwise I don't really think, you probably know more on this than me, but I think most things now are
pretty accessible.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a nice segue, actually. I want to get into a bit of nitty gritty. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is recovery strategies. Do you have anything that you particularly swear by, that you always do, kind of like routine?
Rest and sleep, I think, because so many now are like tools and technology and things that you can just spend a load of money on. But at the end of the day, like, eat within 30 minutes of finishing training, even if that's a protein shake and a banana before having a meal like an hour later, and then put your feet up, have a nap, have good sleep, have 8-9 hours sleep at night. On days I don't work, I try to have a nap in the afternoon, even if it's just 20-30 minutes. I mean, it's quite handy now with the Olympics on, we can spend a lot of time just lounging around.
It's a real good reason for it, isn't it?
Yeah. So I watch a lot of Netflix. I would like to read more, but actually I think when you're pretty knackered from training, reading is quite hard work. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, which is quite nice. But I often end up falling asleep. So they're quite good to listen to on rides. But yeah, I think just good food, good sleep, and yeah, just putting your feet up. I don't
Like very much just going down do the basics right. There is so much noise in terms of like other things that you could do, particular things, but actually if you're not even doing those basics, like why would you even bother with those? And the things which are going to give you the biggest benefits are the simple things which aren't necessarily sexy or super interesting.
Yeah.
It's just like you do that day in, day out, that's going to make a huge difference.
It's also, this is a weird one, also quite nice now having a dog, because it sort of does force you to get out the door and just like flush your legs almost a little bit. And I find it actually quite good if I've got a big run session or something, getting out for like a 20-minute quick dog walk just wakes me up a bit. And similarly afterwards, it's the same thing. I can just sort of a really chilled like 20-30 minute walk with her, and it's just quite nice. And I don't take my phone, and it's just that sort of mental recovery more than anything. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Just, yeah, time off your phone. I think we're
very
all
easy to get sucked in and just always be on it, isn't it?
But I'm just going to scroll reels for like 5 minutes, and then it's like 2 hours later.
Okay, 2 hours, yeah.
No, that is an exaggeration.
And in terms of your daily diet and nutrition then, so how do you manage your intensity with proper nutrition? Like you mentioned, you're going to go out for long bike rides as well. How do you manage that with nutrition?
So it has taken quite a long time to get it right. And I think for me, like that was kind of the primary reason I started to work with you last year, was that I needed to know I was doing things right from a performance point of view. Like I had struggled with underfueling and that, and overtraining, and that resulted in injury for quite a long time. And then, I was in a healthy place, but I wanted to know I was doing everything right for performance. And therefore, by working with you, and then which just meant educating me further, I was much more able to put together a plan and understand and know your sort of like quick tips and tricks to get the extra calories in, or how much you actually need to eat, because I think it still blows my mind a little bit how much you do need to eat. And I think that's like the main thing I think you changed for me, was in the week of a race, and especially the day before, like there's absolutely no way I was eating enough. When like you told me this is what you should be eating, I was like, oh my God, I've been eating like a quarter of this.
Yeah.
So it's, and also I think as a vegan, it's knowing that vegan food is very high volume, low calorie. So it's understanding that actually you'll feel quite full, but there's no way you've eaten potentially enough calories. So it's understanding that it's okay to add in like your healthy fats, like your olive oils, your avocados. I eat a lot of peanut butter, which is fine because it tastes yummy. It's all sorts of protein. It's good calories. So it's like understanding that it's actually fine to eat those kind of things. And again, like I said to you, having the sweets and things before or during training, good calories, good carbs. Yeah. And you'd much rather, be eating. I don't think you can eat too much. I think that's quite hard. And I think even for age groupers who work, like it's really hard for them too, because they might, and I think a lot of the time this is where you get like unintentional underfueling, because they might like before work cycle to the pool, swim, cycle home, go straight to work, and then suddenly it's like
not realise just how much
they're
expending.
And they've gone for like 4 or 5 hours waking hours with effectively 3 sessions and not having eaten anything, and then go the working day, probably not make the best food choices, and then come home, train again, and then you've got family life to add into all of that. And so it has been hard, but I think a really helpful thing that you did for me was set out that like spreadsheet of, okay, if you're going to train X amount of hours per day, like this is what you need to break it down into. Like if I've got a big training day, like 4, 5, 6 hours, it's like your 3 big snacks, your 3 big meals. And then it's knowing, like having those resources to draw on, knowing, okay, what constitutes a big snack or a big meal, and having that plan, having that done on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, So then you just don't have to think about it. And I've got a big whiteboard in my room where I write out my training and my food, and it's just like,
I love it.
there's just no decision making, because I think when you're, and this isn't just a pro thing, because obviously people like you have actual proper jobs and babies and, you know, like life is tiring. That decision making becomes really, really difficult because you're tired. And I really hate that. And that's when you make poor choices, because you're like, oh, I'm so knackered, I'm just going to have like toast and some crisps.
Yeah, absolutely. Meal planning is like our key thing is at the start of the week or when we're doing our shop meal plan. We know what we're doing, and I know generally what my training plan is, or a rough guide, and
Yeah.
it just means that's so much easier.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think probably throughout the whole of this conversation, you've actually been given lots of really helpful bits of info. But if, say, someone, a triathlete was considering a vegan diet, do you have any particular tips or advice that you would give to them?
I think for me, it was just educating myself. You'd be quite irresponsible, I think, to go into it and just think it'd be easy and that you could just like replace things or just take out your meat or take out your dairy, because it's not really, like, you do have to substitute. And I think educating yourself on how much protein, calcium, etc. you can get from X amount of Alpro yogurt, or, you know, getting the recipe books, and it takes time. But also I think what's important to say is that you don't have to feel like you have to go cold turkey on dairy or meat. Like it can be a really gradual process. Like I've got friends that just started doing like meat-free Monday, you know, just to cut down a little bit, because all of that helps the planet and the animals and all of that. And then in that space you can figure out what you like to eat outside of meat, because I think like a lot of us have grown up eating meat and, you know, school dinners and all of that. It's still a relatively new thing, I think, to be especially vegan. So don't, like, be kind to yourself about it. Like, don't have these super high expectations to think you have to get it absolutely perfect. Like, it's quite easy to make mistakes with it, and that's fine. Like, you're trying. And yeah, just be mindful around training that it probably does mean you have to eat a bit more. But as long as you've educated yourself on what that looks like, and, you know, you're happy to eat your peanut butters and you're adding olive oil to your pastas and whatever else it is, then fine. Like, you have to understand, and you have to really understand why you're doing it and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Because I think that's still a bit of a misconception that it can be for like the wrong, like unhealthy reasons.
How do you mean there?
So I think it was quite common in the running world that it was as a reason to exclude foods from your diet. It's quite a socially acceptable way to go out and be like, oh, this is the only thing I can eat. Or, oh, I can't go out to eat here because there's nothing vegan. Or I think that's still something that still goes on. So just be honest with yourself and make sure it's for the right reasons.
Love it. And you mentioned one there, but any particular misconceptions about vegan diets in the tri community that you would like to change or address?
Probably just the protein thing. I was like, where do you get protein from? And I'm like, it's actually quite easy now, and it just takes a little bit more effort. That's all it is. But once you're in that routine, and then it's all good. I don't know. I've not really come across much. I think maybe because I don't put myself out there as vegan.
You don't necessarily get all of that chat.
So I don't know. Do you get anything? Do you get anyone? What do you feel like there is?
I think actually we've probably talked about a couple of them over the course of the chat. So the protein is definitely one. I think cost, and that vegan or vegetarian is expensive, and that it is difficult. It definitely is more difficult. But if you get your standard meals, if you put a bit of time and effort in at the start, I think the rest can come much more easily. So I think that's probably the big ones. And I suppose perhaps you don't even think about this one, but performance is still very possible at a high level following a vegan diet, because I think that is something that people still think perhaps isn't possible, or you can't reach your potential, I suppose, which is just totally not true.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples, right? Serena Williams, Lewis Hamilton, like so many people now follow a vegan diet, and I hate calling it a vegan diet because it's not a diet, but, you know, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's for me, like that's always quite nice for me. And people are like, oh, I had no idea you were vegan. And people I've like hung around with, because it doesn't appear that you eat any differently. You're just
a normal person who's made a
you literally
choice.
don't have to eat. Like it's not, I think this is probably a misconception that it's just like pile of leaves and that's all you can eat. It's just like, oh, you're gonna have a salad. I'm like, don't really like salads unless it's got carbs in it. Like this, what is the point?
Yeah.
You
And I
can,
mean,
you can still, I can go up to my local, we've got a new ice cream shop in Malmesbury and they do really good vegan ice cream.
do you know, I think salads are actually a really big one for me, in that I find it so sad that people often have such a negative perception of salad. And
Yeah.
I think often people think it was like a, I don't know, a side in a pub, and it's like a really sad salad that's
Yeah.
just like a couple of leaves,
Like a
maybe some
green
cucumber and
salad. Yeah.
yeah, and you think that is rubbish. That's not a salad. That's not something that's
Yeah.
gonna make you feel good. Or you can do so much with food.
Oh, one of my favourite summer salads that my Monday and Tuesday dinners, I like make double or triple the quantity. So for the rest of the week, I've got stuff in the fridge. If I'm at work or I'm really late home from training or something, I can just grab it. But one of my favourites, I haven't made it this year so far, it's quinoa, pesto, red onion, tomatoes, peppers, spinach. And it's just like this super good. It's got all your goodness in there. It's got your protein, carbs. And that's one of our favourites for sure. But yeah, salad. It gets such a bad rep, doesn't it?
It does, but it really shouldn't. It makes me feel
Yeah.
sad. But
Yeah.
hopefully more people will over time. And I think as it all, just more people start eating that way, they realise.
Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you?
I'm quite active on Instagram at Lizzie Rayner 97. I'm sure you can put a
I'll
link
put a
or something
link.
somewhere.
I'll put a link in the description.
Link in the description.
Yeah.
And I'm on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect on there. But that's basically it, to be honest. Haven't ventured onto YouTube yet.
No, maybe a future venture.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me, Lizzie.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, speak soon.
Yeah, see you.
So I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did, because it was super talking to Lizzie and getting some insight into her nutrition. Remember to go and connect with Lizzie on Instagram. And if you want some helpful triathlon nutrition videos, then you can check out some of my best ones here.